first become interested in airplanes?
When I was about 10 or 11 years old, my mother and dad took me out to a little old airport. There wasn't many airplanes flying around at that time. They took me out to this airport, and for 50 cents you could ride around for about 15 minutes in an old open cockpit Waco like this one showing you here. And at that time I just loved it, and I found out that I wanted to be associated with aircraft the rest of my life.
When did you get your first experience working on planes?
Well, I started working on them after I went into the Air Force. I went into the Air Force in 1947, and that time then, after finishing basic training, I went to aircraft engine and mechanics school.
Where did you get your first experience working on planes?
Where? At the A&E school, when I went to the aircraft and engine mechanics school, and later in the Air Force I worked on airplanes as an aircraft worker and aircraft maintenance supervisor.
Where were you stationed when you started out?
Well, I started through A&E school at Keesler Field, Biloxi, Mississippi, and then I went to Kinley Field, Bermuda, and back to, and then the second term in Barksdale Field, and then Maxwell Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas, and several other places.
What kind of planes did you work on?
During the tour, quite a number of them, but mostly first time in was B-17s and B-29s. I have a picture of the B-17 here, which was the type of aircraft used most during World War II for bombing Europe. And then I worked on B-29s. I was in a weather squadron which flew hurricanes, and we flew hurricanes to give early warning, the same as these satellites do today. We did it from an airplane back in the 40s.
And when you were working on planes, like, what did you do to them? What were you working on them? How were you doing?
Anything that had to be done to them. We had regular maintenance items which we would do, plus anything that broke we would fix. But we had regular periodic maintenance that we inspected and repaired or replaced parts, aircraft and engines.
Do they still make these kind of planes?
No, those the type that I worked on in the 40s were long since gone. The only ones left of these are in museums around the country that you'll find some like these.
Okay, can we see that picture of that B-17 again?
Sure.
Okay, now what is the most complex part of this plane?
Well, you'd have to say that the most complex part is the engines, because of the number of moving parts in them for the wear and tear. And then the second would be almost comparable to be the electronics or the communication equipment.
Okay. What part of the plane did you say you worked on mostly? Just any part?
Everything, the engines to the smallest detail on the airplane, and the structure and controls.
What was this plane used for?
This plane was, as I said, used for bombing in Germany during World War II. It was developed for that purpose.
How many engines does this plane have?
It has 4.
Is it a piston engine or a jet engine?
It's a piston engine called a radial engine.
What is the difference between a piston engine and a jet engine?
Well, a piston engine fires piston much like your car does, and it in turn through a gearbox turns propeller, which pulls the airplane through the air. But with a jet engine, it sucks air in and has burners inside which superheats the air and pushing it out the tail, which pushes it forward.
How is this plane different from planes today?
Well, it's much different because today we're using jets, and they're far more powerful. Even the early jets were not as powerful as the ones. The progression of jets, if we look at this chart right here for a little bit, you can see from the time that we started and the speeds that we started at on these airplanes goes back when we started at 0 here with the Wright Flyer, and that was in 1912 until today, and we're talking about the Blackbird in the Air Force, and now NASA has it, which flies at Mach 3, which is 3 times the speed of sound. So it's progressed all through there on these speeds. So they're far more complicated. The engines are more complex and powerful.
On this chart, where's the planes that you used?
Well,
Here.
I worked on a lot of them in this area right in here in the Air Force, and then later in my civilian job, I worked on a lot of these through all the way up through the some of the faster jets.
Besides an aircraft mechanic, what other assignments did your military service consist of?
Well, I was a maintenance supervisor, running a crew chief, running a crew to maintain airplanes, and I also did some flying as a crew member in the Hurricane Hunter outfit that I flew in for 2 years, and we flew hurricane missions that basically I was the maintenance supervisor.
Did your military service lead to another aeronautical job or career?
Yes, once I left the Air Force, I went to work for Hayes International Corporation, which turns into become for many years one of the major aircraft maintenance and modifiers, civilian maintenance and modifiers in the United States. I worked there for 38 years.
What did you start out doing at this job?
I started out as a mechanic working on airplanes. I started out working on B-25s when I first went to work there, converting B-25s after the war from bomber type aircraft to trainers, navigational trainers.
Were you working on the same type planes?
No, it's different types.
Were you ever promoted to a higher or another type job?
Yes, shortly after I went there, I became a maintenance supervisor, and all the way through up to project levels, and then director, and then even higher.
What position did you hold when you retired?
I was vice president of foreign and commercial operations for PIMCO Aeroplex, which was formerly Hayes International Corporation.
What do you do now?
Now I'm retired from that, and I've gone into business with a couple of my children into the land development business, and we put in subdivisions and cell lots and do some home building.
Well, thank you for sparing some time to talk with us, and hope we'll see you again soon.
Good, I enjoyed it.